Good morning, beautiful people. I'd like to sing a welcome song. If you know it, you are welcome to join in. Written and inspired by this very community. There is a space in my heart where I find the truth. I find me and you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. And be who you are and let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here, and you are welcome here. See when new eyes allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love and welcome to peace. Welcome to our community. And be who you are and let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. And you are welcome here. You are welcome here. And breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you, and all that you feel, and all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. And be who you are and let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, oh, oh. When we unite. Yeah, yeah. Oh, when we unite. Oh, oh. Now, if you can sing this with me, it's You Are Welcome Here. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. And peace is welcome here. You are welcome here. Namaste.
Good morning, SLCA, and welcome. Welcome to our Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. Good morning, SLCA, and welcome to the Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. Wherever you are in this wonderful country, we welcome you. You belong. So please, this morning, join me in the call to service. How I choose to think creates my personal experience. Therefore, I choose to think affirmatively. I choose to speak affirmatively. I choose to live affirmatively. Not only is this my right, it is my responsibility as a conscious being. I allowed myself to be guided, used, and available for the reawakening of everyone's spiritual magnificence. The moment is now, and I say yes. And I ask you to join me by saying, and so it is. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. It is so great to be in the sanctuary this morning, broadcasting to you with our new equipment. We hope that you are having a great experience that is high quality, up close and personal, just like it has been for the last years. We've been broadcasting from our homes and various locations. We are on that inevitable journey of coming back together and also keeping everybody who is watching from all over the country, wherever you are, highly engaged and a quality experience that comes right into your space that's up close and personal. So we hope you're seeing that today. It's our first time testing it out. We got some people in the room. Our board is here for our community annual meeting. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Let me give you some announcements. First and foremost, ways to give. We are so grateful for all of the support that comes to our community through your text to give, your tithes, your contributions, your monthly circulation. We'll talk in the annual meeting today about where we're at with that and where we want to be as we continue to grow this community. So thank you so much. You see the number on your screen. That's the easiest way to do it. Text to give today. Just put in that phone number, put in the text message, the amount that you want to give, and the system will take care of the rest. If you want to send in a check, you can send in a check. If you want to do PayPal or some other method, you can find that on our website as well. And we're so grateful for all the support that we receive through our community. We want to let you know that on Tuesday nights, Reverend Ursula Lentini will be doing her Twin Heart Meditations. That happens every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. She's been doing this for, I think, quite a while, a number of years, I believe. And so now we're just simply promoting it and making it part of what we offer you as SLCA. So check that out on Tuesday evenings. On Wednesday, we have our Wednesday gathering. We'll be with Reverend Susan Zoller every Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Wednesday is March 31st. It is also the Transgender Day of Visibility. So we want to honor that and recognize that. And in fact, our own Gabrielle Claiborne and Reverend Linda are, and their organization, Transformation Journeys Worldwide, is doing a panel. And so we're going to let you know about ways that you can register for that if you're interested on March 31st. So we want to lift that up and say to the transgender community, you are welcome here. You belong in the presence of God. You belong in divinity, and you belong at SLCA if you're so called to join us. And we're so grateful for that. We do have our town hall meeting today. This is today at 12:30. It's going to be on not on Facebook. It's going to be on Zoom. So the link will be in scrolling in your comments here very shortly. If you haven't already registered for that, please do. This is for pledgers. You should have received an email to go ahead and register for today. So register. You'll get the link right away. And after we're done with the service, we'll take a little break in here, reset the space, and then we'll come back to you. Myself, Karen Ratz, our board president, and the rest of our board are here to answer your questions, give you information, and get you all informed and caught up to speed on how we did in 2020 and where we're going in 2021. Amen. And so finally, we have practitioners who are available today. They're watching online with you. They're available in the chat stream for prayer support. If you need prayer support today, just make that known. You can tag one of them. They should be announcing themselves that they're available for prayer today, and you can instant message them back, or you can simply make a message in the chat that you would like support today, and one of them will be in touch with you. So we want to welcome again our board that is present in the room with us and all of our viewers that are watching on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, California, Kansas City, Colorado, Texas. Who else do we know? We got people from all over. So welcome to all of you. We're so glad that you're here. Alabama, Alaska today. Welcome, Alaska. Awesome. Welcome to this space. We're so glad you're here. I'm going to bring up practitioner Tony Jenkins for our affirmative prayer.
Thank you, Reverend David, for those announcements. My name is Tony Jenkins. I'm one of the practitioners here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta, and it is my pleasure to bring you the affirmative prayer for today. And affirmative prayer is the scientific method that we use to bring about our desires into manifestation. So I invite you to take this affirmative prayer as you need and just be present with me. So I invite you to just take a deep breath. Become centered and ground into the knowing that we are all one. This is what I know, that there is only one power, one cause, one absolute presence in the universe. I refer to this presence as God, but you may refer to it by others' names. That's okay. It doesn't matter what you call this presence, because this presence is within each and every one of us. What I invite is just to be in the presence of this knowing, of this consciousness that is open and willing to bring each and every desire that you have, no matter what it is. All that needs to be done is to ask, to declare it so. And this day, in the Christ consciousness, we refer to as Palm Sunday, I just invite us to just settle into this Christ consciousness and know that all is well, all is good, and all is unfolding in a perfect manner and in a perfect way. I am so grateful to be able to tap into this presence, tap into this knowing, tap into this consciousness that is always open to me at any time and at any place. I am so grateful to be a part of a center that helps me to stay present with this, reminding me that I am part of one consciousness. I am part of all, and this all is always, always looking to connect to me. I'm grateful for each and every one of you out there who has still participating, who are still showing up, even though we may not be here in the present moment. We are all connected. We're connected through the media. We're connected through our prayers, and we're connected to our thoughts. And so if you have received anything from this affirmative prayer, please close with me by saying, and so it is.
This gonna be the day that changes everything. The day that it all aligns. This gonna be the moment when fear disappears and all we see is the light. Together as one, facing the darkness, take a stand for love. We're gonna let it shine, alright. Let's light up the night and let it shine. You and I, oh no, we're gonna let it shine, oh yeah. You've got the love, you've got the light, and let it shine. You and I, we're gonna let it shine. Alright, we're gonna let it shine. This gonna be the moment when joy comes shining through in love. Yes, it overcomes the night. Oh, and this could be the instant when fear disappears and all we see is the light. Together as one, facing the darkness, take a stand for love. We're gonna let it shine, alright. Let's light it up, light up the night and let it shine. You and I, oh no, we're gonna let it shine, alright. You've got the love, you've got the light, and let it shine. You and I, we're gonna let the world know that there's more to give when we open up our hearts and set them free. Cause we let it go of the dark stories we believe, and we realize there's more to you and me. Yeah, gonna let it shine, alright. Let's light up the night, let it shine. You and I, oh no, we're gonna let it shine, alright. Let's light up the night and let it shine. You and I, we're gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. We're gonna let it shine. No. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Whoa, we're gonna let it shine. Oh.
Amen. John Stringer in the house this morning. Thank you, brother. It was beautiful. Let it shine. Good morning. Good morning. We got people in the room. Listen, I got on Facebook this morning and I did a little Mr. Rogers moment. As I said, I got to do things today that I haven't done in a year. And that is one, care that my pants match. Not that they're the same color, but that they're coordinated. Secondly, that I had matching socks on. So I did that good today, and wear dress shoes. So those are all three things. And now the fourth thing, which is to actually preach standing up. Haven't done that in a year. And a year ago, if you had asked me if I could preach the way I preach sitting down, I would have told you, no, I can't do that. I'm too dynamic. I move around. But it's been a year, and I think I've done okay. Yelling at a computer and getting energetic for all of you out there. So today I get to be upright and and have some people in the room as well as welcoming everybody. Please, I know we're watching. There's a little bit of a delay, of course, but we're watching in here what's happening. Please let us know how the experience is. There's different camera angles you're noticing and all of that kind of good stuff. The lighting, we want to get all those things right. So your feedback is important this morning. It's Palm Sunday, so let me. There you go. Palm Sunday has taken on whole new meaning in the last year, right? I mean, that was maybe a little too much. It was, yeah. We might be doing this a while. You ever get in the car with your partner or something, and they squirt you, and you're like, whoa, 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 that's way too much. So there we go. All right, Palm Sunday, we're ready to go. The title today is Commitment to Transformation. Part of our month-long focus on being open to possibilities, commitment to transformation. And in our teaching, religious science, New Thought, movement, we view, it's Palm Sunday, so there's this is the beginning of Holy Week. We had Passover for our Jewish community beginning on sundown on Friday. And so there's all this energy that is around the life and the ministry of Jesus and these stories that we find in the biblical text. And I grew up in this teaching, and I grew up with an understanding that we view the Bible metaphysically, which is to say we view it metaphorically, right? That they are an embodiment of the story of every man, the story of every woman, the story of every person, the story of evolving consciousness, in which you and I are, in fact, every character that we read. Right? We're Moses, we're Jesus, we're Mary at the well, we're Mary Magdalene. We're at different aspects of our consciousness relating and putting ourselves in the story, very much in the same way you would go to a movie. Remember those? Go to a movie theater, and you would relate to the characters on the screen, and you'd go home and you maybe talk to your friends or your spouse or whoever, and talk about, well, yeah, I could relate to that, or I could relate to that. Very much in the same way, right? So we read these stories, and we relate to the characters, and we relate to the journey. We relate to the meaning behind them. There's an old saying that says that whether it happened or not isn't as important. Even if it didn't happen, it's still true, right? And it's kind of the view that I have of the biblical stories. Some may be true, some may be tales, but there's still truth in them, right? When I read a story to William, my toddler, when I read him something about the little blue engine that could, right? It's about self-empowerment and trying and persevering. If he grows up and realizes that the little blue engine never existed and trains don't talk and all of those, it's all just a myth. It's all just a story. It's all just made up. He doesn't lose the value that was implanted in him, right? From that story, the value of believing in himself. So there are value in these stories that we can pick up on. And the central story is one of the evolution of consciousness, your consciousness, my consciousness, from self-conscious awareness in Adam or Adam, first man, first being, to the cosmic Christ of Jesus, to the universal recognition and acceptance of the divinity within us as that second coming or revelations. And so in all of that, Jesus is the symbol of what it means to embody consciousness. He's the example. And for me, that means in a New Thought context, it means actually it gives us permission to talk more about him, not less. Right? I find it interesting sometimes in New Thought churches, we want to talk less about Jesus. But if he really is the example of an embodiment of consciousness, we ought to be talking about him maybe a little bit more. And so at least this weekend and next weekend, we give ourselves permission to do that, to explore this story even a little bit deeper. Today, I want to focus on his walk with God, his walk in consciousness, and the walk that each of us are on in that journey of awakening and change. Commitment to transformation is the title today. Jesus gets clear in this time period that we now call Holy Week, that in his time was as he looked at the coming of the celebration of Passover and people gathering in Jerusalem, and what his own relationship to that period was going to be, which was something he did annually, right? He gets clear on his intention and where his attention needs to go. And as we find ourselves coming out of a pandemic, we are scheduling our vaccines. If we're getting vaccines, we're maybe scheduling our lives. Maybe some of you are like me and spending some time on kayak and looking at flights, right? You're going, okay, by September, I know I'm going to be able to travel, going to be able to go somewhere, right? So we're coming out of something. And so we get to talk about this walk. What are we walking into? What are we walking from? What is the context? And so he gets clear about his intentions in this journey. And there's a couple important things I want to point out today about what that means, both personally and collectively. You remember the story, I'm sure. The story that we find ourselves in really begins in the text with the story of him raising Lazarus from the dead. It begins a few days before that, but we'll come to this story. He was only 2 miles outside of Jerusalem, and the Pharisees became very afraid that Jesus was growing in popularity, and that this particular story, this demonstration that he had raised somebody from the dead, would have the news of that would have come across as shaking the foundation of the corrupt power structure that they had brokered with the Roman Empire, right? To kind of keep everything in control and keep the people under control. But if this man could demonstrate this kind of spiritual power and authority, then that would get to the people in a way that would disrupt the control and authority that they had over them, right? Make sense? And so his walk begins with a decision to not succumb to the conditions of the world, not succumb to the power broking and the power structure, but to remember that all of life is sacred and connected. And this decision is made to demonstrate this, to be in lockstep with this awareness. And the decision that he makes really kind of has two aspects to it. And the first one is a decision that has been evolving and growing over time, right? Which is to say that his decision to step into his spiritual authority, that doesn't really happen, in an instant. If you have ever had to step into your spiritual authority, it's something that happens over time. It begins with an awakening. It begins with an awareness. It begins with an inkling of some kind, which in the stories that we have of Jesus, we hear that begins at around age 12, right? He makes a decision that he has this access, this power, this consciousness, this connection, and he begins to walk with that. And that's a long walk into his young adulthood. That's a personal decision. But then there becomes the public part of the decision. And Palm Sunday and Holy Week and Easter and all the stuff that we've since then wrapped around it is actually more about the public part of his decision than it is the private part of his decision. The private part's been emerging for years, right? The internal decision. Palm Sunday begins as a moment of consciousness. Jesus is a social reformer, and he comes to this critical point of awakening and breaking point in society. He comes to this awareness as he looks out on the collective, and he sees that something has been stolen from the general public, from his own people. A liberty, a spiritual freedom, a just and peaceful society. The politicians have lied. The religious authorities have gotten in bed with the politicians, et cetera, et cetera. And he comes into this awareness that this is the time to take it back. Take back our dominion, to take back our authority. And so the awakening really has two parts: the personal, which has been emerging, and now the collective. The collective is the reckoning that we come to when we say, am I really going to stand up for this? Am I really going to risk? Am I really going to do what it takes to make this stand? And maybe you can relate to that experience, that sometime over the last year, the marching in the streets for Black Lives Matter, the various things that have occurred where you said, maybe you began quietly on social media agreeing or liking or sharing, but then the next incident happens, and then the next incident happens, and then finally you say, you know what, and you maybe lost some friends, or you've gotten in some arguments, or whatever has happened, but then you finally make this decision: am I really gonna argue with Aunt so and so? Am I really gonna risk losing the relationship with this person that I was a coworker with for 20 years? Am I really gonna? And then that something happens inside of you that says, yeah, I am. It's worth it to me. Right? I gotta be a little bit more public about this. That might be one example for you, because the reclamation of our power requires a holy disruption. Reclamation requires holy disruption. And the holy disruption was about the establishment of a holy kingdom that was really what Jesus was really about, was not establishing a new religion called Christianity, not being the political savior that his own people wanted him to be. It wasn't about any of those things. It was really about establishing a spiritual democracy, which had two components. One, a promise that there is a path open to all for self-discovery, right? That this, in other words, he said, this journey that I've been on, this relationship I've had since I was a young kid, you can have it too, right? It's open to everyone. It's not special. I'm only special because I've stepped into that awareness and I've said yes to it, right? But that path is open to everybody. And the second aspect of a spiritual democracy is the responsibility. First is the promise that that path is open to all. And second is the responsibility to ensure that it remains open to all. That's the public part, right? Ernest Holmes, in his final address to our movement, the Sermon by the Sea, in August of 1959, at the conclusion of it, it's a beautiful piece that I often read in full because of kind of the mystical nature that he goes into with that particular address. He says this. He says, we are taking, this is one of the last sentences of the sermon. He says, we are taking, I trust. By taking, he means taking back with us, right? We're leaving this retreat center. We're going home. We're taking, I trust, a vision, something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall walk through us anew into its own creation, and a new glory come with a new dawn. We are taking, I trust, a vision, something beyond a hope and a longing. Right? It's beyond a hope and a longing that if I do this, if I do my spiritual practice, if I study these teachings, my life will get better. I'll manifest that relationship. I'll manifest that new job. Something beyond a hope and a longing of my own life improving. A vision, he says, that the living Spirit shall walk through us anew into its own creation. You see there in that quote that there's something collective about it, right? Beyond my own hope and longing, Spirit walking through us anew into its not my creation, its creation, its desire for wholeness, its desire for community, its desire for the beloved community to be revealed through us and as us. That Spirit shall walk through us anew into its own creation, and a new glory come with a new dawn. And so this is really what this week and this journey and the stories that surround it are all about. Jesus takes 2 days to sit and to contemplate this public outing that he's planning, right? Which is the first lesson in our own spiritual awakening, which is don't rush your work, right? When you come to spiritual conviction, take some time with it, right? Don't go blasting on Facebook and Twitter, right? Be still, right? Put the thumbs down, right? Don't press send. Take some time to really be in contemplation of what does this mean? What does this mean? So he takes some time. He doesn't rush his work. And then when he does show up, he shows up in Bethany. And what happens when he shows up? And I don't have the biblical text in front of me, but if you remember the story, what happens when he shows up is he's immediately criticized, right? The people say, well, it's about time you got here, right? Lazarus is already dead, and we sent somebody to tell you about it, and you sat there, you went and prayed and meditated for a couple of days, right? Where have you been? Sometimes when we take our own time and we pace ourselves in our own spiritual awakening and do what is right for us, others might criticize our process. But he doesn't pander to that. He doesn't, get rattled by that. He's not fazed. He simply seeks agreement and to work in covenant with that which he is there to do. And by the power of his faith, to bring back that which they had thought had died. Right? Bethany, in when you're reading biblical text, you can use the beautiful New Thought Metaphysical Dictionary published by Unity to look up all the names and places of things and get greater mystical meaning out of things. Bethany means the place of affliction. So he goes to the place of affliction to raise back to life something that they had all thought had died. In other words, his public outing begins with a 2-day rest period, right? The contemplation, and then to this place of affliction to bring something back from the dead. His journey into a greater public life, greater public awakening, rattling the collective in, arousing the collective into a greater awareness of their spiritual truth and power. His journey begins with healing something, right? To go to before I step out, let me go to the place of affliction within me, right? Let me get that thing cleaned up. Before you go serve other people, get your stuff together. Make sure it's cleaned up. Make sure it's whole. Make sure don't go, foisting your wound upon others, right? And your affliction upon others. So he takes time to get his own house cleaned up, heals it, so that he can walk with a spiritual authority. And of course, there's the sort of political nuance of the story as well. That particular demonstration, the word is going to get out. People are literally going to run to each other and say, "Did you see what he did? Did you hear what he did?" And oh my God, I saw that man Lazarus walk right out of there. Right? And word spreads all the way to Jerusalem, and it begins to set off a spark. When we step into our power, we will set off a spark. And in this particular story, what we know is that if the people no longer respect the Roman authorities, then they would no longer, then Pharisees would no longer have a need to keep them in power. It would be no longer need to be this relationship if the respect for authority went to a lower level and went to the rabbis and went to the internal embodiment of power. It would disrupt the whole system. And so we remember this week that Jesus was a member of a minority group in the midst of a large, dominant, and controlled group. We remember that the psychological mood and the economical predicament of his family and of the families around him. We remember that he knew intimately his status as a refugee, as an occupant, as a colonized and socially regulated society. And we remember that his ultimate entry into Jerusalem, what we now call Palm Sunday, was a dramatic display of political satire. Because, of course, the Roman authorities would have a big military parade. They'd show off all their might, and they'd do all these things during the Jewish holiday of Passover, just to remind as the crowds were gathering, don't get any wild ideas. Don't think you're going to overthrow the Capitol. Right? Right? Don't get any fancy ideas about uprising, right? Remember that we're here. There's military might, and just stay, have your party, have your Passover, have your celebrations, do your thing, but remember who you are and where you are in the social stratosphere. Roman military intimidation, coupled with the economic exploitation and taxation, uprooted and displaced the Jewish people from their land, forced them into debt and occupations that were less than indicative of their capacity. And yet, Jesus comes to this awareness, it's time for me to go into the city and to make a show of things. So he makes this decision and he goes in. He says, "Get me a donkey." He knows that the military power will be about horses and all of that. He wants to show this demonstration about poverty and about coming from the least of these, right? And he goes in, and ahead of him, everybody's running to tell people, and they're all wondering, is he going to bring Lazarus with him? What's going to happen? Who else is coming? And they all go to see. And the story actually reads that they come out in excitement to greet him, and they rip off their clothes, and it's their clothes that they take off and put down on the path before him. But there's a later, right? There's always a later, right? There's a time difference between the time step of when the event was to have happened in the story that we're reading about and the time when it was actually written about. And sometimes in the Bible, that time period is 80 or 90 years. Right? So in that time period, that space, whether it's 20 years or 10 years or 100 years, all of which exists in the biblical text, that space, just like it does with you and I, you have an experience, you have something that happens, and then you tell the story. And over the years, as you tell the story, it gets a little grander, right? The symbolism gets a little bit more dramatic. There's a little bit more flair added to it, right? And then the bird came from, whatever it is, right? There's you add some punch to it, right? And so the clothes get turned into palm branches in the later editions of the story. Now, why is that significant? Why should the story change from people ripping off their clothes and laying them down to laying down palm branches? Well, there's something very significant to understand in the symbolism of the palm branches. First and foremost, palm branches are not native to Jerusalem. Say what? Go ahead, Rev. Break it down for them. Palm branches are not native to Jerusalem. They're native to another nearby place called Jericho. All right, let's wrap it together now. The palms traditionally represent martyrdom or victory. Because they're not native to Jerusalem, the city of palms is entitled Jericho. Now, why would that be important? Anybody reading this story in Jewish context would understand that Jericho was conquered by Joshua, Yeshua, Jesus, right? Is Jesus' forerunner in the Old Testament. And he represents the one who brings the people into the promised land. And if we pause for a moment on Palm Sunday and go back just even a little bit more in context, we know that Moses is charged with, and we all have a Moses consciousness within us as well. Moses is charged with leading his people out of captivity, out of bondage, into the promised land, giving them sort of rules to live by and all of these different things. But what do we know about Moses? We know that in terms of towards the end of the story, we know that he what? Doesn't make it. He doesn't get to the promised land, which is significant in terms of consciousness, right? And it's right there in the text. And you're thinking, wow, how is he getting all this stuff? I'm getting it from reading the text, right? Because here's what we know. Supposedly, the journey takes 40 years, right? Which is a biblical symbol that means as long as it takes. But Moses is said to have lived 150 years, right? Now, it's all numbers, but the numbers are significant because the symbolism is they're actually telling you in the story, this guy lived long enough to get there. But he didn't get there, right? The story took as long as the journey took as long as it took, but Moses lived 150 years. So how does a journey that take 40 years and you live 150 years, you don't make it? It doesn't add up. And that's intentional on the writer's part, right? And it's intentional because what they're saying is the consciousness that brought you out isn't the consciousness that's going to take you in, right? The consciousness that brought you out is not the same consciousness that's going to take you in. You need a particular kind of consciousness to liberate yourself from captivity, to liberate yourself from bondage, right? But then if you stay in the us versus them, me versus that, me versus the world consciousness, that consciousness can't get you into the promised land in which you claim your victory and wholeness. It requires a different kind of consciousness. It requires a Yeshua kind of consciousness that fought the battle of Jericho, not with armies and battle and us versus them, but with what? His song, dancing around the city until the walls came tumbling down. In other words, being in his joy, being in his divine birthright, being in his right place, singing the song that God placed inside of him, knowing that would conquer. He no longer had to be in the consciousness of us versus them, right? That was necessary for that part, but this part requires a consciousness of being in the joy, being in the consciousness of your alignment with God and singing your song. So the palm branches are significant. They come from Jericho, the city of palms. Yeshua conquers the battle of Jericho. And the writers of the story want you to know Yeshua is coming again. He's coming on a donkey into the holy city during Palm Sunday. The palm branches represent that victory. And what is that? The victory hasn't happened yet. What's the hope of the people that are there? The hope of the people that are there is that basically a new kingdom. And they mean like a political kingdom, right? A new structure, power structure, that the old corrupt power structure would be disrupted and something new would be put in its place that would uplift their people and change the economic structure and get rid of the debt, all of those things. It's like they're hoping for a really good outcome of a particular election. If you can imagine such a thing. I don't know if you've ever been in a period like that in your life where you're just waiting and waiting and waiting and hoping that it comes, right? Okay, come on now. Got some people in the room. I don't have to ding, ding, ding the bell anymore. I know my people online are putting the dings there and all of that sort of thing, right? Which I loved Raymond last week. That was really sweet. He incorporated his little symbol there, right? Right. So they're wanting something completely different than what Jesus is wanting. The intention that Jesus has. Remember this today's title, Commitment to Transformation, and talking about the intentionality that Jesus steps into. The intention is for him is for them to wake up into their own power, into their own purpose, into their, which is a repeated narrative in the Jewish story. That's Moses' intention too. Remember who you are, right? Follow me, come out of captivity. But they keep going back asleep. They keep going back asleep. They keep going back asleep. So they keep getting recaptured. They keep getting oppressed again. So the narrative repeats itself over and over again. This is just the next chapter of it. Jesus wants them liberated from the inside out. They want to be liberated by somebody else. They want to be rescued. Right? And Jesus says, I'm not going to play that game with you. That's why a few weeks later, that those who cheer for him, jeer for him, right? Turn against him because they're upset that he's not meeting their expectations, right? So the consciousness that brings us in isn't the consciousness that brings us out. We need that Jericho consciousness. And so the symbolism, when you put it all together, is kind of mind-boggling, right? We have Jesus making his triumphant entry from a burial place of his Old Testament forerunner, from where Joshua is buried, and led the Israelites into the promised land of milk and honey. And the writers want to say, this is happening again. Here's what a point I was making. What is that thing that's happening there in the story? When the story is saying they're putting the palm branches down, represents victory. It's a symbol or nod to Jericho and to Joshua. What is that? The battle hasn't occurred yet. He has not come in and fought with the authorities of the city. He has not come in yet and turned the tables over. He's not come in yet and argued with the Pharisees. He's not come in yet and argued with the Roman authority. He hasn't done any of that yet. The thing that they're desiring hasn't happened yet, but they're putting down the symbol of victory. We have a word for that in this teaching. It's called affirmation. It's called knowing in advance the victory is already done. The story is saying, know in advance, the battle hasn't taken place yet. The argument hasn't taken place yet. All the stuff that needs to happen hasn't taken place yet. But yet, the writers of the story say, the path is a path of victory. It's already done in the mind of God, right? It's already done. When you commit to your own transformation, your liberation, your freedom, your emancipation from discord of every nature, as Dr. Holmes would say, is already done in the mind of God. It's already secured in the mind of God. But you have to walk a path that says that you know that. Right? You have to walk a path that says that you understand that and that you're in agreement with that. This feels good to be together. Oh, it feels good. Feels good. Let me give it to you this way from John O'Donohue. Anybody know John O'Donohue? Great Irish poet. John O'Donohue, poet and author, he says, once you start to awaken, you can never claim, once you start to awaken, No one can ever claim you again for the old patterns. I'm going to read more, but I just love that line right there. Once you start to awaken, no one can ever claim you again for the old patterns. Somebody ever try to claim you for the old patterns, right? You try to step in with your newness, right? I know we're all going to be stepping into church with our new threads on, right? So like, I got me some new consciousness here, right? But everybody sees you as the old thing, the thing that they knew before, right? So once you start to awaken, that journey is laid with palm branches. It is victorious. It is affirmed. It's already done. No one can claim you for the old patterns anymore. Once you start to awaken, no one can claim you again for the old pattern. Now you realize how precious your time here is. You no longer are willing to squander your essence on undertakings that do not nourish your true self. Your patience grows thin with tired talk and dead language. You see through the rosters of expectations which promise your safety and the confirmation of your outer identity. Now you are impatient for growth, willing to put yourself in the way of change. You want your work to become an expression of your gift. You want your relationship to voyage beyond the pallid frontiers to where the danger of transformation dwells. You want your God to be wild and to call you where your destiny awaits. Your journey shows you that from this inner dedication, you can restructure your own values and actions. You can develop your own self-compassion and a great compassion for others. You are no longer caught in the false game of judgment, comparison, and assumptions. No, now, more naked than ever, you begin to feel truly alive. You begin to trust the music of your own soul. You have inherited the treasure that no one will ever be able to take from you. At the deepest level, this adventure of growth is, in fact, a transfigurative conversation with your own death. And when that time comes for you to leave, the view from your deathbed will show a life of growth and gladness that the heart takes away all the fear. I don't know if John O'Donohue was intending to talk about Easter, right? That's exactly what he's talking about in that passage on that transformation. And so again, I'll close with this. Again, the passage from Ernest Holmes. We are taking, and so I speak this into the room, into the current context. He said it in 1959, but I speak it into this context. We find ourselves moving out of the pandemic, beginning to find our way back to each other physically and expanding into new realities and new relationships with each other. And we hear these words: we are taking with us, I trust, a vision, something beyond a hope and a longing, that the living Spirit shall through us walk anew into its own creation, and a new glory come with a new dawn. Let's be on that journey together. Thank you. Peace and blessings. All right. Tony, I forgot what I was doing. What's next? I'm not used to
Well, I don't know about you, but that message was inspiring. I love how you always bring such a fresh take to what we've been told, what we've been reading, these stories that seem like we it's the same old story, but it is never the same when you present it to us. So thank you, Reverend David Alexander and John Stringer. I tell you, whenever you're present in the building, I feel like something magical always takes place. So thank you, thank you, thank you. If you have been inspired or you got value from this presentation today, then we look forward to you giving to the center so that we can continue to bring these things to you each and every Sunday and Wednesday and sometimes on Tuesday through those classes, those ways that you get to learn about this teaching in a different way than you do on Sunday. So My name is Tony Jenkins once again, and I'm here to do the grateful giving. This is our time to give back to the center. This is our time to say thank you to what we receive. So if you would just say this out loud with me. I live in a universe of abundance. As I freely and joyfully give, I join in a divine flow, and all that I share with life returns to me multiplied abundantly. And so it is.
So you could consider this a prayer of forgiveness for forgetting the plans to be love, forgetting that birthright of oneness, and a prayer of gratitude to say yes. I wanna say thank you for the way you gently open my eyes. No matter what I do, your love is always coming through. When I look in any situation and I say I say yes, and I say yes to your love. Oh yes, oh yes, and I say yes. Great Spirit, I say yes. Father, Mother, I say yes to your love. Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. You've created me fearlessly and wonderfully to be your instrument. Use me, use me. I surrender in this moment. Let my body be a vessel. Let my soul be a temple. Yes, yes. And I say yes. Great Spirit, I say yes. Surrender, I say yes. Give up everything that keeps me from knowing you, and knowing the truth. Oh, and I say yes. Father, Mother, I say yes. lift my hands out through you. Let my body be a vessel. Let my soul be a temple. Yes, yes. And take my hands, do what you will, and take my voice, do what you will, and take my do what you will, and let your love flow through me. Mm-mm. I know you know the plans to prosper me. Give me hope and a future, and I see it. I surrender, and I see yes, yes, and I see yes. Sing that with me to love. Yes, and I see to peace. Yes, yes, and I see yes to joy. Yes, and I see yes to transformation. Come on. Yes, and I see yes. Yes, great spirit, I say, yes, yes, Father, Mother, I say, yes, yes, to your love, yes, yes, and I say, yes. Father, Mother, I say yes. You know I lift my hands up to you. Let this body be a vessel. Let my soul be a temple. Yeah, 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 yes. Thanks so much. Namaste. Oh, yes. And by the way, you're invited to join my wife in the amazing New Thought Queen, I like to call her, Ricky Byers, for a woman's journey of healing and hope coming up April 17th and 18th. And in fact, SLCA has a special discount. You can get 10% off now using a code WJ2021-SLCA. Just enter that in when you check out and join us April 17th and 18th. Namaste.